everyone, and welcome to the Super Dandori Bros Podcast, episode 11. And this is a little bit different podcast. So I know last time I brought this up, we were like, oh, we're going to have a special podcast. This is not actually the one I had in mind, but we are recording this actually about a week ahead of the Switch 2 Direct. And of course, Nintendo goes ahead and announces another Direct tomorrow, which we weren't prepared for. So we might have another video regarding that one coming soon. So keep on the lookout. But today, the theme is going to be Switch 2 predictions. Our predictions for what we think will happen during the Direct. We're going to have some safe predictions, things we think are pretty likely to happen. Some riskier predictions. So things that, there's some validity to, but it could go out anyway. And then our crazy predictions, or even what we'd call our wish list predictions. And these ones are just curveball crazy. We don't know. Probably not going to happen, but, it'd be kind of cool if it did. You ready for this, Ryan?
I think so. We'll see how our predictions come out.
All right. Well, we're going to start off with safe and work our way down to the crazier ones. So stay tuned if you want to see what crazy things we think are going to happen. So, okay. I'm just going to start with my first safe prediction, and I think that Metroid Prime 4 will be a launch title and have enhanced graphics.
Okay.
I think that's pretty safe.
I agree. I think it's pretty safe. I think that they showed it off previously for a reason with Switch 1, so that we could, one, know it exists, but two, so then they can have a comparison. I think that the entire reason why they showed it before is like, this is what's capable on Switch 1, and then this is what it's going to look like on Switch 2. And I think that if there was any ambiguity about whether or not that game was going to... If Nintendo was like, oh, no, we're going to have Switch 1, like, obviously we're sort of in limbo right now because we don't know. But if they knew it was only coming to Switch 1, I think they would have made that explicitly clear by now.
Yeah.
I think that they're sort of saving the Switch 2 version for a reason. I think that we got, a little bit of a taste of it beforehand, and now we're actually going to see what this game is about.
Yeah, because, they've been so ambiguous about the release date, too, which I feel like is going to be tied to the Switch 2, which is why they won't say anything. They already talked about, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, that's come and gone, Xenoblade Chronicles, and at the moment, I know there's going to be a bunch of games announced tomorrow, but at the moment, there's no new Switch 1 games to be announced. So to me, it just seems like Metroid Prime 4 is definitely lining up for a launch. And it's, what a game to showcase on the new system too, right? You're going to have graphical improvements, and if the mouse controls are to be believed, which seems pretty high likely too, perfect game to showcase those new controls. Kind of like what Metroid Prime 3 did with the Wii, showcasing the pointer controls. This is going to be basically if you had PC controls, but for Metroid.
I agree. And that actually sort of leads into my first prediction, which is also Metroid Prime 4 related, which is not only are we going to see the Metroid Prime 4 mouse-specific controls, but it will be the game that they use to demonstrate it. Maybe they open with it, and they show the mouse controls and how that works as, that is the game in which they use to demo that.
Interesting. Okay. I'm kind of inclined to agree, but also, I don't want to say disagree. I think that they're going to have that as one of the main games. It's going to be the hardcore game to showcase it, kind of like Breath of the Wild was to showcase console games on the go.
Yes.
But I think that they're going to have, this is one of my other predictions, is they're going to have some form of gimmick game, a la 1-2 Switch, Nintendo Land, Wii Sports, something of that nature to showcase these controls in a way that we hadn't considered before. That's just what Nintendo does. They have to have a tech demo game to make you see that this is different and try and inspire developers to think outside the box with what this can do. It's not just a mouse. It also has insert blank here. I think there's going to be some other gimmick game that we can't predict. I don't even think it's going to be a 1-2 Switch game. I think it's going to be something original that is going to be very much around using a pointer control.
I am inclined to agree. Specifically, I think Metroid Prime 4 is the first one in the timeline of the Direct. It's the first one that they show where they emphasize the mouse controls. I agree they move into a gimmick game. I'm wondering if it is a new Snipper Clips. Not necessarily it's just the gimmick game. Maybe that's like a third game or something. But it makes me wonder if they're going to release an enhanced version of Snipper Clips or a Snipper Clips sequel or something like that. Some co-op game with mouse controls, because you got two mice now. And it shows, two controllers, two mice, and that would be the perfect like co-op like game for that. That honestly like totally deserves a sequel. Like I love snipper clips.
I had never considered the idea of literally having not just two mice for single player, but like two mice for multiplayer. Like that actually makes a lot of sense, considering it seems to be semi-confirmed that both Joy-Cons will have the functionality. Though that does make the left-hand, right-hand thing a little bit tricky, because I think the controls would be very much focused on that. Like,
Possibly. I mean, you could always like turn the Joy-Con around because remember the Joy-Cons are asymmetrical, and so like as it is, if you're playing Mario Kart or whatever, and you're holding the Joy-Con sideways, then like
that's
different, yeah, like
true.
and my wife and I ended up running into this because we would use her sideways Joy-Cons, which I don't know why we did that because I have my own set. Like this is just a total brain dead move, but or maybe we did it more with Overcooked. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I really think that they're going to show that both of them have it using, and maybe it's the gimmick game, maybe there's no snipper clips, but that's sort of another like sort of safe prediction of mine is that there is a co-op game where they demonstrate the mouse controls that each one of them has it, and that's how they show that.
Yeah, and here's another prediction I have that's not necessarily for the direct, but just a theory I have about the Switch 2 because of the mouse controls is we're gonna see, and also because of that. You remember that game that was like the very secretive test game? The tech.
Yeah.
They didn't. There was a few leaked images and stuff, but it basically was like this world building game, and I feel like Nintendo's recently, since the Wii U, well, in a lot of ways since before that, but specifically with the Wii, when Mario Maker came out, that was kind of the first, to me, the really big, like, wow, like build your own levels kind of thing. And the touchpad, the gamepad was so good for that. I think that the mouse controls are going to create, that Nintendo's going to focus a lot on user generated content this generation. I think the pointer controls are going to make it so much easier for level editors. So I think we're going to see a lot more games with level editor functionality. So like the new Mario Kart might have a map creator. I think we'll get another Mario Maker game. I could just see more and more games having that kind of functionality because the mouse pointer controls are just so good for that. And because you look at Tears of the Kingdom, you have build your own stuff. Like it just feels like Nintendo's been introducing more and more user generated kind of creativity. Obviously, some of it's not shareable. Like obviously, Tears of the Kingdom, you can't like share your creations with other players. But I do think that that's going to be a focus because of those mice controls. That's just a theory I have, completely unrelated to the Direct. They may announce that at the Direct, but I think that's going to be a theme going into the Switch too. Is more user-generated content.
I think that that's a pretty good prediction, and I think sort of piggybacking off of that, this is not my specific prediction. I suspect that the mysterious C button is related to user-generated content. And so my actual prediction is that we are going to see the functionality of that C button. They are actually going to demonstrate what that is. It's not going to be saved for a later time. We will see what it is in the Direct. That is a safe prediction of mine.
100%. I mean, they have to. I mean, it's been this mysterious thing that destroying Reddit users left, right, and center, trying to figure out what it is. I've seen some interesting theories for it. I don't know. I've been swayed so many different directions. My current belief is that because the demo, the reveal trailer they had no button on it, that there's a chance that it is not a button per se, but a small touchpad cursor.
Oh.
That you could just use just for like when you're holding it at the TV or just for like very basic stuff. It seems crazy because your controls for it would be terrible, but like just as an auxiliary, like you can't, if you can't detach the Joy-Cons, you just need something to quickly move a cursor around, could be an option. It's very small, but maybe it's bigger than we think based on the leaks and stuff. But that was the only thing I could think of, unless they just removed the button, label from it just so that it didn't, spur on more rumors in the reveal. Maybe they'll bring back a C for that and it'll mean something. But I don't know. We'll see. I love that there's so much mystery still. This is fun.
Yeah.
This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, despite the leaks, there's still some mystery, which I think is really great.
So let's see. What have I got here? Oh, so here's another prediction I think is safe, is that Joy-Con drift will not be addressed directly, but it will be made clear that the Joy-Con joysticks are improved.
I agree. Yeah, I don't think that they include any admission of previous flaws in the technology. I think that they only sell the upsides of it. I think, there is that patent that I've mentioned before on a previous episode, the magnetorheological technology that Nintendo supposedly has and has a patent for essentially like like a control stick resistance. Maybe that's in this. Maybe that's safe for a future console. We don't know. But I think that just looking at the Joy-Con itself in the reveal trailer, it's very clear that this is a different design. There's some sort of like shroud or cover on it. Maybe that's specifically to help with Joy-Con drift. Maybe that's specifically, for this new technology. I don't know. But I agree with you. I think that it is going to be emphasized that in some way, shape, or form, these control sticks are better.
Yeah, it's going to be more of like an improved thing versus saying fixed.
Yes.
So I think that's something they're going to emphasize, and I kind of get that hint from the reveal where they kind of show the analog stick swinging around as if it I'm like, why would you do that? Like, it's an analog stick, we all know what it is, but I do think they want to make it clear that there's not going to be Joy-Con drift without admitting to Joy-Con drift.
Yes.
They got to relieve those fears. So
I 100% agree. They are extremely careful with their PR.
well, their lawyers are like crazy.
Yeah, they are. They are. So. Absolutely. Okay, so my next prediction, going back to Metroid Prime 4, I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to demonstrate one significant change from previous Metroid Prime games that is pulled from modern shooters. And so by that, what I mean is some sort of sprinting or some melee attack or something different that they're using the talent of the Call of Duty developers that they have hired, and they are demonstrating that Metroid Prime 4 is in some way an evolution. Now, there may be changes that aren't pulled from other shooters. Like, we know that Metroid Prime 4 is going to have some gimmick. And so that's not covered by this. Specifically, what I'm saying is that they are going to leverage something that brings Metroid Prime 4 closer to what a modern shooter feels like than what a shooter was back when Prime 1, 2, and 3 released.
Yeah, you're going to be able to do assassinations on all the enemies.
Yeah. Absolutely. Honestly, I kind of hope they bring back like finishing moves from Other M. But like in first person or something, that or who knows, maybe the camera transitioned to third person for a second. But like honestly, having at least some, not necessarily quality of life improvements, but just some modernization to it. Because like going back and playing 1, 2, and 3 within the past couple of years, they do feel a little slow at times. And I don't necessarily know that that's a bad thing, but I do think that there is sort of a discontinuity between the Samus of the 2D games and the Samus of the Prime games.
Interesting, yeah.
But that's more of a nitpicky thing for me. I do think that we are going to see at least some change to the fundamental gameplay. Maybe it's tied to the gimmick in some way, but at least we see at least some adoption of some more modern first-person shooter game design principles. What do you think?
I agree. I think they have to. It's been so long since the last Prime game. There's so much that's changed. They need to adopt certain things. I don't want it to turn into just every other shooter, because at the end of the day, like as Nintendo's made it clear, Metroid Prime is not a first-person shooter. It's a first-person adventure. Yes, there's shooting elements and stuff, but the pace and the style of game is definitely more like it's supposed to be a Metroid game, but in 3D. It's exploring and getting powered up, but I do think that to a certain degree, they need to modernize it just to, for quality of life. But also maybe just to try and appeal to a few different groups. If you just added a sprint button, though, I think that would probably end up just becoming like an upgrade, or some kind of maybe, or like a mid-air boost kind of thing, or kind of like, again, like in Dread, like, there were certain abilities where you could just dash mid-air and things like that. You could add some of those things just to make it feel maybe a little more fast-paced, or you feel like you're a little bit more in control of combat. The trailer made me think that combat might be a more important role in this game than it has been in the past, which would be kind of cool if they could do that really, like in a really clever way. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. I think they definitely are keeping their cards close to their chest. The trailer was very safe, which I don't think that's a sign of the game. I think they're just holding back. Just the same way Tears of the Kingdom didn't reveal all its cards. We didn't know about the depths. We didn't know just the scope of everything that was going to be happening in that game up until it was out. So I think that the Metroid Prime 4 is the same. Nintendo wants to surprise and delight us, so I'm excited to see what they do. So let's see here. I've got a few other ones. I said there's going to be some hidden hardware feature that we still don't know about, and I'm not including the C button. I think it's something internal, I don't know what it could be. I think there's got to be something more than just, Joy-Con snap-on mouse controls. Like they'll have some other gimmick, kind of like HD Rumble was a hidden gimmick, the IR sensor. I think there's going to be some other sensor or, one idea I had was like how with Apple they have these sensors in their phones and devices where it can tell how far things are apart. So like when I'm checking for my AirTags or something like that, I can just it just immediately tells me like, oh, you're 3 feet away, you're 2 feet away. I could see Nintendo doing something like that with like the Joy Cons, where like it can tell how far apart they are, and you could use that for different kind of games. Be kind of cool, especially if they did like a Labo 2.0, or if they did do like a VR type thing. Having the ability for the controllers to know where they are relative to each other in 3D space could be really useful. But I'm not saying that's the feature. I think it'd be a really cool feature for Nintendo to implement. But that's the kind of crazy out of the box thinking I could see coming from Nintendo that we just haven't seen yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's at least one more surprise, that the form factor and the images of the Switch 2 and what was shown in that reveal trailer, like it's not immediately obvious. Perhaps in retrospect, sort of like if the mouse controls had never leaked, then seeing the Joy-Con sort of slide on the table wouldn't have really meant a lot to us. But in retrospect, once we learned about the mouse controls, you could go back and see it, right? And so it wouldn't surprise me if actually there are hints to it in the reveal trailer that, like, for whatever reason, we like didn't recognize at the time. So that wouldn't surprise me. But I think you're right. I think there's at least one more surprise.
Yeah, I think they that's how Nintendo goes. I'd be curious to see if they bring back HD Rumble or some upgraded version of it too. I know it was a big feature they showed off for the Switch One, and it hasn't aged as it's aged well. I mean, it's still pretty decent, but PlayStation's kind of one up that now with the new PlayStation 5 controller. So Nintendo has to up their game to either match or beat that. I think if they want to keep the Rumble like a really high selling feature.
Would you consider HD or like Ultra HD Rumble to satisfy your prediction?
Yeah, I mean, because I don't, I guess it depends. If it's different enough, because I'll be honest, I'm not 100% certain they're going to bring back HD Rumble, because it never really did anything more than just, it added more immersiveness, but I think Nintendo really hoped for it to be a feature that could be used for gameplay mechanics, and I just really didn't see it beyond like 1-2 switch and other things. Like there were a few things where it kind of notified you of stuff, or you might feel like certain cutscenes you'd notice it, but again, it was immersion. It wasn't really gameplay. Nintendo really is focused on features that are going to enhance gameplay. And if it doesn't enhance gameplay, it doesn't show up in the next system. And so I've seen that with like the 3D. I don't know, even with like the infrared sensor on the Wii, like they've moved to different technologies to kind of change that. So we'll see. I'm hoping for something a little bit more than that, but I will say that if it's some form of upgraded HD Rumble, I would say that's a past prediction, like
Okay.
or it's a successful prediction.
Would you consider that a successful prediction if the feature is that you can use the Switch 1 as a controller for Switch 2 games? Would you consider that to satisfy that as well?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I will. I
Okay.
think that's a pretty big gimmick. That's a pretty big hardware. Now, I guess it's not specific to the hardware of the Switch 2. I mean, it kind of is. You have to have the Switch 2. But yeah, if somehow they made it so Switch 1s could be used like game pads from the Wii U, like that's actually, I'm gonna I'll spoiler alert. That's one of my crazy predictions
Oh, gotcha.
for the this whole thing is that the ability to use the Switch One as like a controller, since they sold 150 million of them, and they could keep selling them as consoles even with the Switch 2, which is a way to keep NSO subscribers in there. It's a way to continue sell indie games, maybe even just some other low risk games. Nintendo wants to keep milking into that demographic while they have the Switch 2 to kind of tide over all the hardcore people. And so eventually all the the normies go over to the Switch 2. They can kind of ease that transition in. But that'd be cool. Don't know if it'll happen. I think they'd rather sell more Switch 2s as second controllers than Switch 1, but it'd be a great way to kind of make people who have the Switch 1 feel like they're still part of something and maybe tease them to want to buy a Switch 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Because sort of like how in the past, like with and not quite exactly the same, but like back in the days of the DS, where if somebody had Mario Kart DS, then if you had another DS, you could play with download play. So it'd be sort of like that, except intergenerationally. And so you could only play a Shy Guy in Mario Kart DS if you did download play. If you had a game cartridge, then you could play the full roster. And so there's sort of that incentive to have a Switch 2 and probably a copy of whatever game you're playing, but not necessarily, like it's not exactly the same situation, but sort of analogous to that. Which honestly, I'd love to see download play make a comeback. I thought that was
Yeah.
such a cool feature.
It was a very cool feature. I missed that. And I don't know if that's a limiting factor of just Nintendo trying to sell more copies or if it's a legit hardware now that games are so large to download all the assets you need to be able to play parts of it's basically you're downloading a demo of the game from another console. Maybe that's just a logistical issue at this point.
Yeah.
But still, would love to see that come back. Do you have any more safe predictions?
I have a few more.
Okay.
Some that we could blow through real quick.
Yeah.
So I think that Pikmin will be shown at some point. Specifically, I think that they are going to have the Pikmin carry out the Switch 2. Like
Oh,
an
that'd be
animation of that or
cool.
something like that. I think it's going to be something goofy like that. That's my safe prediction for Pikmin. Don't worry, I got one for each category for Pikmin.
Okay.
But because we are Super Dandori brothers, we have to mention Pikmin and everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I think it's going to be something goofy like that. That's my safe prediction that we'll at least see them in some capacity. A game would satisfy this, or even if they like did like a montage of Switch games, like let's say that they show like a collection of Switch games that they get upgraded on Switch 2, and let's say Pikmin 4 is among them, and they show some footage of it, that would also satisfy the prediction.
Okay, so Pikmin in any shape or form is going to have some presence there. Like you will
Yes.
see a Pikmin somewhere in this direct.
Specifically a Pikmin, if they show only Olimar, it doesn't count. It's got to be a Pikmin.
Oh, yeah, there's no way that should
The
just
word
Olimar.
the word Pikmin doesn't count either.
Oh, so
So
it
it has to be the actual creature Pikmin, any one of them. Even a Bulbmin would count. Even the mushroom Pikmin would count. The Puffmin, those would count. But not Olimar, not Louis. Even though Louis probably eaten Pikmin and is therefore partially made of them.
Well, I mean, I can see that. I think that considering Miyamoto's influence and everything, and Pikmin has grown as a franchise with Nintendo, so I could definitely see that coming. Another prediction I have is I am almost certain there will be some form of 3D Mario game shown off that's going to release in the holiday. Like it's been almost 8 years since Odyssey, and there's been no 3D Mario since, other than the Bowser's Fury, add-on to Mario 3D World. Wait, is it 3D World? Yeah.
Yeah, 3D World.
And yeah, it just seems like the perfect game to have, come out this season. You got to sell a Mario game, and it's Mario's 40th. I mean, they got to. Yeah, it seems to me like how could you not launch the system without a 3D Mario game the first year?
Absolutely, and furthermore, I'm gonna build on that. I think they will show a 3D Mario, but I think it's also going to be the most open world Mario that we've had.
Okay.
So you could argue that like Mario Galaxy was probably the most linear,
Yeah.
and then on top of that, Mario Odyssey, both Galaxy 1 and 2. I'm wrapping them together. And then on top of that, Odyssey became more open world than Galaxy. Still, I would not consider it to be truly open world. This one, I think, is going to take a step further into the open world area. Now, are all areas going to be seamlessly connected? That I don't know. Are you going to have much larger worlds, maybe like different like kingdoms connected together or something that you could travel between? I don't know, maybe but I think that the Bowser's Fury was an evolution of, which I didn't play myself, but from what I understand, it's an evolution of the Odyssey concept into more of an open world direction. I think that there's a trend that we can see, and I think that especially given the success of Breath of the Wild, then Nintendo probably is like, okay, there is at least a market for this kind of game. How can we make a game that is fun and new and do this in an interesting way with our biggest franchise that we have?
Yeah.
That is my safe prediction.
Has there been a game called Mario Adventure?
No, I don't think so. Well, actually, there might be.
I was thinking maybe on the Game Boy or something. It might have been an older one, but I was
There
thinking
might have been.
be interesting because Super Mario Adventure World or something. Like just adventure is kind of the word that came to mind when I think of like a big open world of
Yeah.
that, and it would just kind of be an easy one that flows off the tongue.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I could see that. I mean, there's been a lot of Mario growing, and where do you go from Odyssey? But it's funny, you go back to play Odyssey, brilliant game, super phenomenal. But you do start to realize that the worlds aren't quite as big as you think they are. Like they really are pretty small. So it'd be interesting to see either just larger maps or, like you said, just integrating them seamlessly into one another would be kind of cool to see how Nintendo does that. So I definitely, yeah. Was that one of your predictions? Was the open world?
That is open world. Yes, that was one of
Okay.
my safe predictions.
I have one more safe prediction.
I have three
Or
more.
two, sorry.
I have three more.
Okay.
Do you want me to just go?
Yeah, just go.
Okay.
Yeah,
So this one's kind of obvious. I think that obviously we're going to see the Switch 2 animation again. You know, we got that. At least some of that in the announcement trailer. But I think that they are going to show specifically like an animation that shows the original Switch logo and then being replaced with like the Switch 2. So and that won't be the animation that we get at the beginning of directs from now on, but essentially like suggesting yes, this is the successor and we're actually going to get a specific animation for that. Probably a low yield prediction, but one that I thought would be at least different from just I think this is going to be a new game, you know. So that is one of my safe predictions. Not a lot to discuss about it, but
Yeah.
I figured I'd at least get that one out of the way.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're just trying to create receipts for ourselves. So if we're right, we can come back to this.
Absolutely.
One of mine is that they will use SD card express instead of regular micro SD cards. There's been rumors about that. Samsung has some, but they're just not very common at the moment. But I think this will kind of bring more mainstream. They're really fast, not quite SSD fast, but they're pretty. They're 800 megabytes per second. I think it's megabytes, not megabits. It's pretty fast, and it would be, I think, fast enough that you could download games onto it and get SSD-like speeds, especially with the quality of games Nintendo. I mean, the PS4, because it's going to be probably PS4 Pro-ish level graphics, in which case that generation had just regular hard drives. I mean, so I think a system that has pretty much faster than SATA SSDs will be pretty good at, for quick load times. I don't know how they're going to do about the cartridges because from what it looks like, they're using very similar cartridges. So I don't know if they've just found a way to upgrade the speed of the cartridges or if they're going to force you to download the games off the cartridges to the system, a la like the way a lot of current systems work. But we'll see. Because they've got to keep the speed consistent across all the games. There's no way you can have certain games have just mind-boggling loading speeds and some of them have last generation loading speeds. I just think that could break certain games.
Yeah, potentially. Could you envision them having more contacts on it so you get more like almost parallel output from the cartridge?
That's what I think they're going to do is some kind of like, they'll just split the contacts. So it's going to be the same amount of space, but they'll have multiple contacts, so there's multiple channels, and they're just figuring out a way to get more data per channel. And that'll allow that if you have a larger cartridge, it'll still fit in the same pins. The system will just know that those are 2 pins to one spot on the, it will find a way to distinguish it.
Yeah.
And they'll obviously have to do something different to the cartridge, so you can't put Switch 2 cartridges in a Switch 1. They'll do something like that. But because it's backwards compatible with the physical games, the cartridges have to be very similar. So, but I think they're going to do something to make them faster, whether it's and maybe you don't have to do all the game data on your hard drive, but maybe you have to have, certain assets have to be downloaded to your system in order to, get the load speeds. But because kind of how like PlayStation 5 has certain games that kind of like Ratchet and Clank's kind of built around the fact that it uses an SSD.
Yeah.
I feel like there's going to be some Nintendo games like an open world Mario that really rely on an SSD to be able to allow the quickness to load everything as you warp around the map and things like that. So that's one of my predictions. You had a couple more you said?
Yeah, I have a couple more. I think we're going to get some third-party support. And among them, what I'm going to predict is that we're going to get one or more of the following. Mm-hmm. Elden Ring Night Rain, or Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay, interesting. So I put that in my risky predictions.
Okay.
Not because I don't think it will happen. The reason I call it risky is because I don't know if it's going to happen at this direct.
Okay.
So I think those games absolutely could come to Switch 2. I'm trying to figure out if they'll want to do that as an announcement with this. So I think it's interesting. You put it in safe. And mine's probably like leaning towards like the middle between safe and risky. I think all those games are, like I said, likely, just not sure whether they'll be shown at the direct or not.
I think they're going to want to emphasize third-party support.
True.
So I think that if you're going to pick anything, Elden Ring is probably a safe bet. Red Dead Redemption 2 is probably a safe bet. I don't think they're going to get GTA 6. So it's not going to be that. I mean, they could show GTA 5. But I don't know. Like I feel like Red Dead 2 would be one that people would be more stoked for, and in some ways like a little bit. I mean, it's still like obviously got a lot of content in it that isn't family friendly, but like GTA has like a reputation, right?
Yeah.
And so I could see them going for Red Dead 2 over that. They may show like a Call of Duty or something
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
true. Yeah.
So there are all kinds of games they can show, but specifically my prediction is we're going to get at least Elden Ring Night Rain. The only reason I bring that up is because that's coming out in May, and if the Switch 2 launches in May, it's possible that we get, because Elden Ring Night Rain is not particularly graphically impressive, I could totally see it being able to run on a Switch 2. And who knows, maybe it's still a bit downscaled from, what you get, but it essentially more or less looks like kind of the graphical fidelity of the original Elden Ring, which ran on PS4. So I could totally see it being essentially just an equivalent version, and they just haven't been able to like say yes, this is coming
Yeah.
to Switch 2 yet, because then the release date might it might be something that Nintendo wants to hold off on because they want to be able to announce this is going to be day one or
Yeah.
something like that.
That would be cool. It'd be nice to see some of the games releasing at the same time on Switch 2 and not feeling like a huge downgrade.
Yeah.
So I do agree, a lot of third-party support. That's definitely a safe prediction. What games will get third-party support first, we'll see. Because I remember they showed Skyrim in the original Nintendo thing, and it took a while for Skyrim, for some reason, to actually come to the Switch. So I think that there's certain games that maybe they'll get shown, but they may not necessarily be out at launch, or they'll be trickled out throughout the year. But there's certain developers that are still probably working on getting it working on Switch 2, or who knows what. I had Master Chief Collection too, because there's a lot of rumors that that's coming away from Xbox, and that'd be hilarious to see that on Nintendo Switch in their direct.
That would be really
And
funny.
then that means Master Chief can be the next Smash Brothers. So
I mean, that I wouldn't complain.
yeah,
That might actually get me to play Smash Brothers.
right. My last, so I actually had lots of third-party support in my safe predictions, and then my last other one was the UI will get a facelift and some extra features like themes.
Okay.
Themes, I mean, I feel like they have to do some more customization to the menu, especially if they want to make it seem more fun and appealing compared to the original Switch. I know Nintendo probably won't make it a huge emphasis because they want to try and streamline it. The Switch 1 was such a huge success, didn't have themes. Themes are not going to make or break the next system. I know people are all excited about it, but I don't think that's going to break the system. But I do think they're going to make the UI, definitely give it a facelift. They need to make it look different,
Yeah.
because otherwise people are definitely going to have a hard time telling the difference between the two systems. And then I think there'll be some new theming. I think Nintendo could make so much money if they just did paid themes. I don't know why they wouldn't do that. Special promotions, use your silver platinum coins, or whatever, those free ones or something to, get themes for your system. So we'll see.
Okay.
Now we're getting into risky predictions.
Well, I still had one more.
Oh, you did. Sorry.
And I kind of have two more, but one of them is just sort of a question. I don't know if it's actually a prediction.
Okay.
But I feel it actually makes sense to bring up here. Do you think this is the generation where Nintendo implements their own equivalent of achievements?
No.
You don't think that's happening?
I don't think so. I think it's a game by game basis. I don't think Nintendo's going to put an official achievement system. I don't know why. I just get that feeling that Nintendo's just not focused on that. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I just yeah, I don't know. This doesn't seem like really high Nintendo's priority list.
Yeah,
But I don't know.
I could see them doing something like almost like the Ubisoft challenges, where they're like significantly fewer per game, and you get like platinum points for it, or something like that. I could see them like tying into specific like milestones within the game or something but not something dumb like, have Link shoot a rupee out of the air once, or not something dumb, but something like you beat Ganondorf. You beat the game. Congratulations. Here's like a 50 extra points, which technically would count as achievements.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they reward you with points, because you can get physical items from those platinum points. You can from their store, so they'd either have to get rid of a lot of stuff, because then there'd be so much free stuff going out everywhere just for beating games.
But they just hand them out weekly anyway.
Yes, but if you're getting you could double or triple your volume if you're just beating games for and getting points. So I think it's going to be a little bit more like what they currently have with the NSO, where if they're like, oh, if you play this game on NSO, you'll get 50 points, or if you back up your cloud save data. It's like silly, weird achievements, like just play this game for a couple minutes, and I've done that. Or download this demo. They'll have like a free game for a week. They had like I think I did that for Knights of the Old Republic once.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. The
So
last one I played on that was the Mario and Rabbids sequel, which honestly I feel is kind of an underrated game.
it is
from what
that I
I've
have
played.
that game. It's really fun if you want to
Yeah.
borrow it.
I actually have it now.
Oh, you have it now?
Yeah.
Nice. It was on sale. That's why I got it.
You have the one physical cartridge like
Yeah.
that you own.
Yeah.
Is one that I already
Oh
have.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was on. I think it was like $15 on Amazon or something.
Yeah, I
They
got it pretty
discounted.
cheap around Black Friday or so.
Yeah. But yeah, I could see them doing more of that. But whether or not they would go full blown achievement center, I don't know. Because I don't think Nintendo's philosophy. Because if you do it for certain games, you got to do it for all games. And that's the thing. Like when you go into PlayStation, I mean, am I wrong? Correct me if I'm wrong though. But like on PlayStation, pretty much every game has achievements.
Yeah, every game has trophies.
Yeah, it becomes a requirement for making games on that system. I think Nintendo would have a hard time forcing every developer to create an achievement for.
Yeah, no, I don't necessarily think that they do that. I think it would be more like, like for their first party games, like you beat, this thing in Mario Odyssey, like this boss or whatever, and you get like 20 extra platinum points or something, something like that. And so then it shows you like progressing the game. I could see them like, wading into it with that. But at the same time, I don't know that like there are people out there who and I'm one of them who, like to complete the trophies and, achievements or whatever. But I don't know that they're like the hot new thing because they've been around for a long time. And so, Nintendo dabbled in it a little bit in the past, like with some game specific stuff, like Pikmin 3 Deluxe had it. But then also like the 3DS had in the Street Pass games some achievements, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's true. Prime 3 had achievements.
Did it?
Yeah. You don't remember that? It had achievements.
Oh wait, I do remember this. Yeah, it showed the like the
Little medals and
yeah,
stuff.
I remember that. And then it like a lot of them are essentially defunct now because you can't like send friend requests or anything. And I think by the time that you and I had become friends, you'd already expended all of your vouchers, and so I didn't get it.
I don't remember. I think there were points you could earn to unlock like artwork and stuff in the game, or different. Like you get a little bobblehead you could get for your ship. But yeah, that was the first time I think I remember Nintendo doing any kind of achievement, which was kind of when achievements were starting, because Xbox 360 was really the one that kind of ushered that in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not against them. Though to be fair, I'm not an achievement hunter at all. Like I literally don't even think about achievements at all when I play games. But that's not why I'm saying no. I just feel like it's something that there's nothing holding Nintendo back from doing that at this point. So why are they suddenly going to do that now? So I'm going to just be the opposite side of the coin. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love for you to be like, ha, they did it. I'll take no shame in that though. So, but yeah, was there any more? Do you have?
Yeah, there's one last one, which sort of bridges between like the safe and medium, which is that Mario Kart 9 is essentially a reboot, or has fundamentally different gameplay.
Reboot.
Yeah, so essentially like they're changing the way that the game plays in a fundamental way. Not just like adding like 0G or whatever. It's still going to be a racing game, but like it's going to be different now. It's not going to necessarily be like isolated tracks, or the tracks are going to be significantly longer, like somehow connected. Like there's going to be something that changes this, so it's a fundamentally different experience than previous Mario Karts. Because previous Mario Karts, it's always like, oh, you have the gimmick for the specific game. Like we had the like motorcycles, and then 7 had the gliding, which then both of those carried over into 8, where 8 had 0G, and Double Dash had his gimmick that never made a return, sadly, because I really liked it. But that was also my first Mario Kart game.
Mm-hmm.
But I suspect that they are going to change it in like a fundamental way. Like this is going to be sort of like Mario Kart 8 was sort of like the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate of Mario Kart, and now they have to do something different, and I think this is the something different.
Yeah, that's true. I just have no, other than the fact that they showcase they have double the players, which could lead into some kind of I don't want to say battle royale, but kind of like kind of F-099. I don't know if it's going to be the way you play games, or if it's just going to be a mode. I think there's going to be a lot more gameplay modes. So like previous games have been a lot of like tracks and characters, but like most of the gameplay modes are basically the same. I think we're going to see a lot more variation in the modes of play. so that you have more variety, where you could have like a 6-player like super competitive, but then you could have your 24 just casual fun chaos. You could do like an endurance one where you have to get fuel to stay driving, and if items deplete fuel, like you could do some crazy fun gameplay modes. But I think there'll be more customizability, and I also think this is where they'll finally introduce a track builder. This kind of goes back to my customization thing. I think that with the mouse controls, they can create some form of track builder with this. So we'll see, but I think that's going to be also one of the big things that they'll do. So yeah, it's going to be some kind of reboot, but also like, it'll be interesting if they do kind of nick some of the things because they didn't. I think there were motorcycles in the trailer.
I think so, yeah.
We obviously don't know if there's zero G or gliding or anything like that. Some of that stuff I feel like is probably going to stay, but yeah. Speaking of Mario Kart, this kind of leads into one of my risky predictions that I don't think Mario Kart will be a launch title.
Okay.
But I do think it will come out the following month.
Okay.
I think it's going to do exactly what they did with Switch 1, where Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I believe, launched them in April of 2017. I'm pretty sure it followed directly after. So they let Breath of the Wild have some room to breathe to be the showcase game, which it was great. It was perfect. And then Mario Kart just came out a month later. Because at the end of the day, here's the thing. The Switch, on first month's going to sell like crazy. Probably going to sell out. Probably going to be hard to get. So they don't really need to put Mario Kart out the first month, but it will help sell Metroid Prime 4. It'll sell the heck out of Metroid Prime 4. I think Mario Kart 9, whatever it's called, will come out the following month, or a month or two, something like that, because there's no reason to cram two of those big games at launch. It's going to kill Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah.
Even if Metroid Prime 4 is a dual release, which I do think it's going to be a Switch 2 and one game, I think it's going to hurt sales if it's, fighting against Mario Kart, because if parents are going to pick up the Switch, that's the game they're going to pick. So, but yeah, I think it won't be a launch title as much as everyone thinks it is. They say it has to be a launch title. I'm like, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe wasn't, and it came out just a month later.
Yeah.
It'll do fine. I think they just want to get it out early. They just don't want to make it the first game you pick up.
Well, and I think maybe this wasn't intentional, maybe this wasn't their purpose, but it does sort of mirror the order in which we've been getting like game announcements. So like Metroid Prime 4 we saw in June, and then we saw Mario Kart 9 or whatever it's going to be called in the announcement. And so in that way, it sort of mirrors that as like, now granted, we haven't seen the Switch 2 version of Mario Kart. Mm-hmm. Or, I'm sorry, not Mario Kart, Metroid Prime 4. But it wouldn't surprise me if like that is the way that they do it. And it actually wouldn't surprise me if they essentially open with Metroid Prime 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, like in the Switch 2 Direct.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, and then they'll show Mario Kart 9 afterward, and then we find out, like that's also the order in which they're releasing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how I don't know what order they're going to announce things in. I mean, I can see exactly where you're coming from, starting with that and then working their way into other stuff. I could also see them leaving Metroid Prime 4 a little later because I think it's going to be a visual showcase according to some of the rumors as well. So it's going to just blow people's socks off. I think it could be one of those like, start out with some of this stuff. I think someone was saying, I was reading about how, because I haven't watched the original Switch presentation probably since it originally aired, but they announced the price and the release date like right at the beginning, and then worked into all the other stuff. So I'd be interested to see if they do that at the beginning, and then slowly work their way through games. Because I don't know if Breath of the Wild was literally what they finished that whole presentation off with, was announcing that Breath of the Wild was launching with the Switch, but. So who knows? They may try to. I see them trying to replicate the success of the Switch, so it does seem like there's some parallels there, but we'll see. They might be trying a few new things as well.
They might. Should I move on to one of my medium ones then?
Yeah, I want to hear.
Okay. This one, maybe this is actually more of a safe, but we'll see. I kind of think not. One dormant franchise will be revived in this Switch 2 Direct. And by dormant franchise, I would include... like Star Fox, of course, because you gotta mention Star Fox in every episode of Super Dandori Brothers. F-Zero, Earthbound, Kid Icarus. I would not count Pikmin because we just got Pikmin.
Right, or Animal Crossing.
Or Animal Crossing now. I wouldn't count those. So, those, as far as I'm concerned, those are actually like, relatively big now. I don't think it's gonna be like if I had to pick one, it's gonna be Star Fox, I think. But I think there will be at least one revived dormant franchise shown in this Direct.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. I feel like there's some franchise they're going to at least announce. Whether it'll come out this year or next year. I don't know. I think they'll announce it, but I think this year's gonna, as far as games coming out, are primarily gonna be the popular games. So like your Mario Kart, your Mario game. The Metroid's not really on the top franchise list, unfortunately, as much as I love it. But you've got Metroid. I could see a Splatoon potentially coming out because that's super big in Japan as well. Um, because I'm looking back at the Switch One launch year was crazy. They had the new IP ARMS, so there could be just some crazy new IP
Yeah.
that we don't know about. There's also they had the Xenoblade 2 come out on the launch year. It was in December of that year. So there could be something off the wall like that. We just had Xenoblade Chronicles X, so I think that that's just going to get like a boosted performance thing, which actually leads into one of my predictions is that we're going to get specific Switch One games that will get performance modes that you can play at 60 FPS at higher resolutions, maybe 4K with DLSS or just 1440p or something. They're going to have just better resolution, better frame rates using some of this NVIDIA tech.
That's one of my predictions too. I think they're going to give us a list.
Yeah, and it's going to be like games they have to obviously make it, so they'll be like, here's the first few games. Now, I don't know if it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be free. I think they're going to charge for it, and it's going to be either do the expansion pass, and all these Switch One games, just boom, you get or it's going to be like 10, 15, maybe even $20 for the boosted modes, the performance modes. That's what I could see. If Nintendo tried the shenanigans of trying to resell all the Switch One games with full price with performance modes, I think they're kidding themselves. I could be wrong. They might be crazy enough to do it, but I think that they're better off trying to sell their NSO subscription with just here's a better frame rate and better resolution for your games. Maybe they do texture packs. That's kind of maybe up to certain games, but I think first party games they could do that as a way to kind of help promote NSO, especially the expansion pack. There'll probably also be a price increase for the NSO just to match that. But
So I think then my question would be, supposedly, at least elements of this, improved performance mode are supposedly present within the game cartridge of Xenoblade Chronicles X, and for that reason, it's sort of already built into it. So could you envision maybe that one at least, because it's so close, being free, but other ones that they have to go back and do, like Breath of the Wild, if they were to do that, that one costing money? Could you see that?
possibly, yeah, it's hard to say because I feel like Nintendo doesn't like to do things for free. I mean, I guess that's not harm said too. Splatoon does their rollout of DLC, and I think it costs basically nothing for all the new maps and all the new modes, and they do their Splatfest. So technically speaking, they do sometimes give stuff out for free. But you look at Mario Kart, the DLC for that cost. You look at Breath of the Wild, they had DLC. Smash Brothers had a ton of DLC, and even both Splatoon games had paid DLCs you could get as well. So, but this because it just feels like as much as we like to believe that it costs them nothing to improve these games, it does cost them something. There are programs that have to go in to specifically make the games run better. I know people have emulators and they're like, no, we can make it do this. And it's like, okay, but someone had to, they were still tinkering to make that happen. And that's also janky. Like Nintendo's going to make sure that it's bulletproof if they do it. They're not going to allow it to be like this fluctuating frame rate or any kind of jankiness. It's going to be a solid 60. They will do things to the game to make it run flawlessly, especially if you're doing resolution. I don't know. People will probably argue with me in the comments and say, no, it's not that hard at all. I don't know. My assumption, though, is it still takes resources. So maybe it's like a $10 upgrade. If they go beyond just resolution and frame rate, I could see them charging more. Like if it's like an actual texture pack, that takes a lot more work. So I could see Nintendo charging more than $10. And then you have Breath of the Wild, remastered kind of. But if you own the game, sweet. If you don't, here's a remastered with all the DLC for $60 maybe. I don't know. So we'll see. But yeah, I think they're going to do something just because, and the whole reason is because of what you just mentioned was Xenoblade having a 60 FPS mode, plus the rumors of there being some demo showing a better looking Breath of the Wild behind the scenes. So maybe they were showing off to certain developers, hey, get your games ready, not just, for the fact that you can you can put them on better graphics for the Switch 2. If you want to, like, if someone bought Witcher 3 on Switch 1, they could get like the improved version on Switch 2. You remember with the Virtual Console, they kind of did that. The Wii to the Wii U, you could pay like $1.50 more and you'd upgrade it to the Wii U version.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you could do that. So if you had a virtual console game on the Wii and you import it to the Wii U, you could pay. I don't know if it was always $1.50, but it was like a nominal upgrade fee to make it work on the Wii U. That was so partially so you didn't have to switch between the Wii U menu and the Wii menu because you were basically rebooting your system every time you did that. But also like certain games like the N64 ones, I think you get better, certain performance and I don't know, better resolution and stuff. So. Um, yeah, so there was updated versions of that. I could see Nintendo just doing that, but you know, who knows? I'm very very curious to see. So that was my big one. What's another? What's for you?
So, just piggybacking off of Xenoblade Chronicles X, I think we are one of my medium predictions is that we are going to see Monolith Soft's new IP.
Interesting.
I don't know what it
Brand
is.
new IP, not Xenoblade related at all.
No, I don't think so, because supposedly they've been working on one behind the scenes. And if you're going to, I mean, so my understanding and what I've seen from the clips, Xenoblade Chronicles X looks pretty good on the Switch. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's like retro level, like Metroid Prime remastered level graphics, but it still looked really good. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they're like, okay, yeah, we want to show this as part of, and maybe the whatever like playtest, game IP that they had done. Maybe we don't see that this time. Maybe we do. I imagine we're getting one new IP.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah.
maybe not two,
Well,
but
I mean,
one.
I think because it depends on if you include like the gimmick game as a new IP. Like Once You Switch was a new
Yeah,
IP.
I don't know if
I don't know if we're getting another ARMS level IP. That's the
yeah.
thing I don't know. I think ARMS was definitely them trying to see if they could replicate the success of Splatoon. And, with a competitive game that had crazy, weird mechanics, it just didn't take off. I would be surprised if we see anything from ARMS ever again, at least not for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, new IP from Monolith. I don't know. That'd be so cool to see. Did Monolith work on the remake?
Um,
On the HD definitive?
I I honestly don't know.
Because I was gonna say if they were working on that, I don't know, would they even have the time and resources to be doing another game? I guess it depends on how many teams they have.
It depends on how many teams they have, and then also Nintendo sits on games, so it's possible that Xenoblade
True.
Chronicles X has actually been done for quite some time.
Yeah, because I could see this Chronicles X as a way for Nintendo to kind of appease Xenoblade fans for the year. Like to release two Xenoblade games in the same year just seems crazy. So there's got to be either a new IP, or they'll probably again have some kind of here's a performance mode for Xenoblade Chronicles X for Switch 2, and then maybe a new IP. I don't know, like, I don't know, interesting. I'd love to though, because I know they're crazy wizards at what they do, and I think that what they could do with the Switch 2 hardware is gonna blow our minds. Same with Retro; those two companies are legendary.
Yeah, I mean they're probably Nintendo's best looking like the developers that make the best looking games. Of course, besides Pikmin 4.
Oh, but yeah,
But
that's a given.
yeah. But yeah, no, but truly like it's like Metroid Prime Remastered like truly blew me away, like truly. And I haven't been able to play Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Switch yet, though I really want to. And so I'm looking forward to that. But those are probably the peak of what Switch One can put out. Maybe Metroid Prime 4 will be included in there as well.
Yeah, it's almost a shame because I'm gonna buy it for Switch 2, assuming it. And again, I'm pretty darn sure they're making a Switch 2 exclusive version. But I would love to just see it playing on Switch 1, just to see what the Switch 1 truly was capable of. Because I think you're right. I think it will be like the pinnacle of what the Switch could do, kind of like what Breath of the Wild was for the Wii U. Breath of the Wild really was kind of like this peak game for like what the Wii U was capable of, pushing the limits of the world and everything. And I think that yeah, so it'd be interesting to see. Um, okay, so Monolith. Let's see what else. Okay, so I'm gonna go be crazy here, and so okay, I shouldn't say crazy. These are risky predictions, not crazy ones, because we know we're gonna find out the release date. We know we're gonna find the price, but I think my predictions will be counter to what a lot of people are thinking. I think the release date will be May 22nd.
Okay.
So I'm just going to lock in a date. And there's a few people that have kind of come up with some good reasons, partially because of the 2-2 thing, and Nintendo's just kind of obsessed with the number 2 right now. And I think the price will be $450.
Okay.
I know a lot of people are like, no, it's going to be 400. It's going to be 400. And I'm just maybe just for my own sanity, I'm going to predict 450, and I'll be very pleasantly surprised if it's 400. But I people keep looking at inflationary numbers and look at this and that, and I'm just like, yeah, but like there's more than just that at stake right now. And I think that, it sounds to me like they're putting a lot of good hardware in this thing. And I know it's not going to be a PS5 Pro, but from what we're hearing, it could definitely, we might be more to it than we think, especially because they pump so much, tech into those controllers too. Unless it's just really like just basic, like it's a mouse and it's buttons, and they got rid of HD rumble and there's no IR sensor and they just simplified it down. I don't know, but I just feel like 450. And I don't know, because I don't think they're going to do a pro model like they did with the Wii U, where they had like 2 SKUs.
No, I don't think they have that at launch.
Which would be, I mean, I wouldn't mind because I would love to I'd pay the extra for an OLED model at launch, but they won't. But I don't know. I'm just gonna stick to it. And that way, if I'm wrong, hopefully I'm wrong in a good way.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, at least on the price. The release date, I think it's ambitious. I think it'd be really cool if it was 522. I'm skeptical, mostly because I don't want to be disappointed.
True. That's yeah. I'm kind of on both opposite. I went price wise. I went over thinking, hoping it's under, and I went earlier for the release date, where it's probably going to be later. But
yeah, I've been part of Team 450 for a while. I know that, like you said, people have been speculating 400, but I think that they never want to have to increase the price of it.
Yeah, they got to think long term.
And considering the volatility of the markets, and especially considering that we have like foreign exchange like currencies being at least somewhat wrapped into this, I think that they want to play it safe.
Yeah, it's a hard number. I think 450 would be a hard number to sell. 400 would obviously, 399 sounds way better.
Oh yeah.
But I think Nintendo has to look at the volatility of the market, unless somehow they've come to some amazing arrangement with their vendors and stuff. But the cost, they look heavily, like way more than people realize. Like we just think of parts, but they're looking literally at the price of rare earth and metals and materials, like all the things necessary to build the components. They're watching those prices. They're watching the volatility in those areas, not just on chip manufacturing, but like what is used. So with everything going on in the world right now, they may be trying to cover their butt. Part of the reason I predicted this too is looking at the PS5 Pro going 700. And with such a huge jump over what the PS5 goes for now, it just seems kind of insane when it is a better system, but is it that much better of a system? That's what kind of blew me away, especially when they have no disk drive and the graphics are, I don't know, I'm sure you could see they're better, but I think that Nintendo and Sony are both looking at the market and saying we need to our systems, we have to set the prices higher now to compensate for what could come in around the corner and I don't know, I think Nintendo will sell a crap ton of million at 450. So they want to sell at a profit. But I could be wrong. Could be 400, and then the 450 is the OLED model down the road. But
I think regardless of whether it's 400, 450, demand in the beginning is going to be very, very high. I think you've got a lot of people who are essentially at this point just like you and me, like essentially just name a price and we'll pay it. And you and I both have upper limits, but I think for me 450 isn't even approaching that. Like I want to play Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah.
And granted, not everyone is in the position that they've been able to save, set money aside like you and I have. So maybe maybe it would be a deal breaker for a lot of people, or force them to put off the purchase for some time. But I think Nintendo is anticipating a really big launch. It sounds like they've really ramped up production. They're anticipating really high demand, and I think for however it is that they calculate it, it's not my area of expertise, but they probably have an idea of what they were going to charge from it. They probably have had that idea for quite some time, though they always remain flexible. And I think for that reason, whatever we get we're going to perceive that it has very good value.
Yeah. All right. Well, what else do you have do you have more risky ones?
I have some medium ones and I have some crazy ones.
Yeah, I have a lot of crazy ones. So I'm almost done with my medium ones. So.
Okay. So, one of them was that we would see in some way, shape, or form Breath of the Wild Remastered. Sort of talked about that. Connected to it, I think we're going to get a mention of the next 3D Zelda. I don't think we're going to see anything. I think they're going to mention it. In some way, shape, or form. I don't know what that's going to be. I don't know if we're going to see a logo or a title or whatever. Probably not. I don't think it's going to be like a sequel to Tears of the Kingdom sort of situation. But it wouldn't surprise me, like in previous generations, like you would get a tech demo for Zelda that was shown for a little bit. I don't know that we're getting a tech demo this time, but like, let's assume for now that they are going to try to reinvent Zelda again. Not necessarily on the degree of Breath of the Wild, but they're going to try to do something different next time. And let's say that it's a sci-fi Zelda,
Cyberpunk Zelda.
Yeah, like truly. Like they could show something from it and, or whatever. I think it's unlikely. That's why I sort of put it in medium. And next 3D Zelda technically encapsulates other remakes, right? Or just remakes in general. So like if they did an Ocarina of Time remake, then hypothetically that would satisfy the prediction. Otherwise, I would consider it risky. If it was specifically totally brand new next 3D Zelda shown, that I think would I put it in the risky category. But medium would be like some sort of remaster. I mean, we do have another anniversary for Zelda coming up.
Yeah.
I don't think it's totally unreasonable.
Yeah, I do think that next year they'll want to probably do something for Zelda, being the 40th for it. I'm just trying to think. Like one of my risky, crazy predictions. I put Ocarina of Time full remake, like not just a remaster, like a remake. It's a crazy prediction. I don't know if Nintendo would go that length, but you never know. They need to. I think they're trying to keep the cadence of a new Zelda, something new Zelda, every year. I don't know if a remastered Breath of the Wild would fit the mold for them or not. Because one of my predictions was that they will have a remastered Breath of the Wild, like a full game that you can buy with all the DLC and all the upgrades. Now, as far as like a full like talking about a new one, at the most I could see them doing is kind of like what they did with Prime 4, and it's like some kind of artwork that says we're working on it. Basically, yeah, JPEG, PNG type thing that they're just like, it's coming, and it's something that maybe gives you a hint about what the next game will be, and we won't know about what that means until like 2 or 3 years from now.
Yeah, Zelda Punk 2077.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. I know they've wanted to bring Link into a more like technological world for a while, and I feel like the last couple of games have shown some hints of that with all the technology, the ancient technology they keep bringing into these games. But whether or not they will go full bore into like a sci-fi setting is a whole nother thing, because it does fulfill that fantasy kind of genre, and Metroid's kind of the sci-fi. So if you kind of overlap them, could be problematic. So it'd be interesting. Zelda's a franchise I genuinely don't know what they're going to do with this year, because they've just released 2 mega games in the last 2 years. There's just no way they have a full game ready. So it's going to have to be some kind of remake, remaster, which is why I think this year they're going to fulfill it with just Breath of the Wild. And then maybe the following year they'll either have something new. Who knows? Maybe next year will just be, like a triple pack of Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword all in one or something. I don't know. Something possible. Yeah, kind of like 3D Mario All Stars, and instead it's going to be
Zelda 3D All Stars.
Zelda 3D All Stars or something.
Doesn't even include like Breath of the Wild, the best-selling one.
They could have a remake of like another older Zelda, like either the Game Boy, like Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons. Could be a Link to the Past remake, which would be kind of wild. Just like Super Metroid could be a crazy remake. But
yeah. Oh dang, you're spoiling the rest of my list.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. So they've got to do something with it, but
I got a couple more.
Yeah,
3
go
more
for
in
it.
this.
Yeah, we're already over an hour, so we gotta...
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, so I'm just gonna rapid fire these then. Pikmin spinoff announced.
Okay. Is that you risky or crazy?
No, that's actually medium.
Okay, medium. Okay.
Yeah. Supposedly there's a Pikmin spinoff. Supposedly we're gonna see it this year. I think it's at Switch too.
Okay.
But Mario Kart 9 shows one new Nintendo franchise for a racer.
Oh yeah.
So like all of Mario, it'll essentially be like Soul Calibur, where you just get guest characters. That's my guess.
Yep.
And then the last one that's sort of medium is I think we get a DK open world game. I think that they're rebranding DK for a reason, and so I think we're getting a DK game, like a new, brand new, like 3D DK game.
Oh, so like kind of a sequel to DK64 finally.
Sort of like that, yeah. But maybe it's like reimagined. I think that there is something like with DK and theming here, and he's got a facelift, which some people consider a downgrade. But
technically he's styled after his original design now. He's actually going back to his roots. Similar, like if you look at the Mario Kart 9 trailer, a lot of the characters look like a little bit more like the original designs, almost like they're going a little more retro, like reimagined retro.
Yeah, I'd say for him it's at least the most noticeable.
Yes, 100%.
So I think, maybe potentially we're getting, something actual like DK.
I
And there was that Activision game that Activision ended up canceling. But Miyamoto supposedly really really liked it. So I could totally see them just saying like, "Yep, we're getting a new DK game." In which case, that's technically not a franchise revival, but I would almost consider it to be if it is like 3D because we haven't gotten 3D Donkey Kong. I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah, but I feel like they fit the. That's why they threw in the Donkey Kong Country Returns HD.
Yeah.
Was to fit their DK quota for the year. Because there's a certain. I think Nintendo does that. They have a certain quota for the year for exposure of their high-profile franchises, and they need at least one game a year for these franchises. Mario gets a little bit more exposure because he's the Mickey Mouse of their franchise, of their company. So he gets Mario Kart and a Mario game and maybe something else. But I think that, and it's his anniversary this year. But I think that there could be one of those games. I'm going to disagree. I don't think we'll see it at a direct. I could see it in the next year, just because they'll want to try and keep DK, for the next, unless they're considering DK part of the Mario anniversary. I don't know, but Mario's anniversary is more tied to the original Super Mario Brothers, whereas DK's anniversary comes before that. So we'll see. Do you have any more? I'm actually kind of almost out of.
That was on my medium. Now I only have crazy remaining.
Okay, let me see. Just double check. One of my my only last medium one was Nintendo will show off a custom accessory for playing games in mouse mode while on a TV.
Okay.
I think it could be some kind of Nintendo themed gamepad, but it's not like just a roll-out mat. It's gonna be like a hard surface that you can like stick on your lap or next to you, so that you have somewhere to use the controller while on the TV. Because otherwise, the mouse mode is completely useless unless you're at a desk or in tabletop mode.
I can believe that.
So I think that there's going to be a way to be like, oh yeah, and Nintendo's going to come out with some crazy accessory for it.
Yeah.
That they'll sell it to you extra. It won't come with the system.
Yeah, it'll be essentially a board that fits in your pocket.
Yeah, just pull it out.
Yeah, and it's got like a little clip and it fits in your pocket and you just like run the controller on the side of your leg while you're standing up playing or something. That'll be what it is.
Yeah. So crazy predictions. I actually don't have as many of these because I didn't really know where to go with some of this because otherwise it's wild. But we already talked about some of them. The Wii U mode was one of my crazy ones.
Yeah.
The Ocarina of Time 4 remake was one. I said new Star Fox or Pikmin game shown off. I said that's. So I guess Pikmin, when I say Pikmin, I mean full-blown Pikmin. I didn't include spin-offs. Yeah. So that's why it was a crazy prediction of like a brand new Star Fox, Pikmin 5, right?
Yeah, I also have those as crazy predictions.
Yeah, those would be crazy. One of my crazy ones was bring back the Mii Maker app and Street Pass.
Okay.
Just like, because technically Mii still exists in this thing, but it's like they're buried somewhere. But I feel like maybe they need to rebrand them, but like I think having your own little avatar person is still kind of a cool thing. And the characters they came out with for Switch Sports look awful. I'm sorry. I hate the way they look. I think Mii's still look way more fun and personalized, and there's just more character to them. I think they need to somehow bring back the Miis, whether it's calling it something else or just call them Miis. I don't know. It still kind of works.
Yeah. Call them Switches or something.
Oh, no.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
But yeah, I think that, but in Street Pass, which seems crazy because the system's huge, but Street Pass was so cool. I would love to bring back Street Pass.
I could see Spot Pass coming back over Street Pass.
What was Spot Pass
again? That was where it was connected to the Wi-Fi or whatever. So Street Pass is when you actually pass by people on the street. Whereas Spot Pass was like you get like the blue notification on the 3DS when there was like something that came through the Wi-Fi, so you could like send stuff to other friends like through the Wi-Fi sort of thing.
Because I thought there was a system where there was maybe it was a different form of Street Pass where like Nintendo, the demo stations, if people passed by those demo stations, it would like accumulate all the people that went by, and then if you went by, you'd collect all those people.
Oh, I did not know that. It's probably part of Street Pass.
So if you just brought your Switch to certain vendors, like you wouldn't have to pass by a bunch of people, but you could just bring it to one place, and if everyone kept doing that, you'd get some kind of Street Pass thing. Because the Switch 2 is going to be massive. There's no way people are carrying around their pockets.
Yeah, no, there's no way. I won't be able to fit it in my pockets.
I know, that's saying something.
Yeah, my pockets are huge. Okay, do you want me to rapid fire my crazies? Okay, so I also had the Star Fox and Pikmin game. I think, crazy prediction, but I'd love it, Super Metroid remake shown. I think is
Yeah.
very, very unlikely because we're getting Prime 4. I think we do get a Super Metroid remake within the next 5 years, but I don't think that that's going to be shown. There's not much to say about that. The next one I'd say is probably like my the one that would be the most that we'd have to talk about, which is they show the new Animal Crossing and it's in space.
Animal Crossing X Metroid or Animal
Yeah,
Crossing X Pikmin.
exactly. Yeah, no. Next Animal Crossing is in space. Yeah,
That would actually be sick, though.
wouldn't it be awesome?
I hadn't even thought about that. Just
Yeah,
Animal Crossing in space.
planetary colonization.
It's just a mix of Kerbal Space Program and Animal Crossing.
and so then kicking out a villager from your space colony has like a totally different meaning.
Oh, it's just like an Among Us thing where you hit the button and check them, vote them out.
Absolutely, like it's a
Oh,
space station
just the
or like
ultimate
on a
crossover.
planet. Yeah. So that is one prediction I had. I thought that'll be on the thumbnail for sure. And let me pull up the
I'm going
the
to think
last.
about how to make that in the thumbnail now.
And then my last one, I think is again crazy. We're not going to get it. Is an Earthbound remake. I don't think we get. I don't think we ever get a new Mother game. I think our only chance of reviving that IP is a literal remake or a remaster. I think that it's a great game. You know, you can still play it today for the most part. Maybe it's just a remaster, but I could also see it being a remake.
Yeah. I think we will see a lot more remakes with the Switch 2 just because the Switch 1 had the benefit of having a bunch of Wii U games to port over that most people hadn't played. So a lot of people just felt like they were playing brand new games, but obviously most people, only people like us got to play them. So I think that this time around they're going to have to rely heavily on remaking or remastering old games in order to keep their library full. So I could see them doing it, especially if they wanted to build some mega hype for core gamers. So that'd be interesting. I'd love to see it. So I think my last one I had listed on here, because we got to a lot of them early, was GameCube and Wii NSO. I think that's actually a crazy pipe dream. As much as everyone's like, oh, it's going to happen. I just think that with the way they've been remastering and remaking the GameCube games, for Switch, bringing this Pikmin 1 2 HD, having Mario Sunshine and the 3D All Stars, Metroid Prime 1 remastered,
Thousand Year Door.
Thousand Year Door, right? Like, I just think that the trend is going to be for them to just continue to do that instead of giving us the old games where they're just not as people are going to crucify me for saying this, just not as good as a remastered version. Prime remastered is just better, objectively better in every way. And
Yes.
it's kind of hard to go back, especially with the controls. I know the controls were made for that game, and you can absolutely go back and play Metroid Prime 1 and still enjoy it. But once you've played it with better graphics and better controls, it's impossible to go back. So I don't know. I would love to see them just go back and say, "Hey, we've introduced the mouse controls," for some of those. But yeah, and also just the file size. I mean, GameCube discs were a gig and a half. Maybe a game was, if a game was less than that, you could do that. But NSO relies on the games kind of being already downloaded on your system, which is okay for NES and Super Nintendo and even N64 games. But GameCube games, suddenly you have 10 to 15 games. You're using up 10 to 15 to 20 gigabytes of your storage just having the GameCube NSO installed. Go to Wii, oh my gosh, like that's impossible. And I know people want to bring back Virtual Console, but I'm like, that's just not happening. Nintendo's pretty much proven NSO is the way to go. I think remasters are where it's going to be at. And I think we'll see a lot of them. I think that's just what they're going to do. They're going to keep releasing. If they're HD ones, kind of like Pikmin 1 and 2, they'll probably be more reasonably priced. And same like Prime Remastered is an anomaly because that game should be worth more than $40.
Yeah, that is mind blowing to me.
Yeah, so I don't expect $40 to be the norm, but that was like, you guys owe it yourselves to buy that game. Like if you haven't, because it's just too good of a value.
Well, especially with the dual analog controls, that no pun intended is a game changer.
It is a game changer.
100%.
It is a game changer, but also just what they did to visually upgrade that game was like they basically remade the game.
Yeah, there's only one complaint I have about that game, one single complaint, and that is that the charge beam doesn't give off lighting when like the particle collides with stuff. And I think the standard beam also doesn't do that. But that's literally the only complaint. Everything else is amazing. Like it's like a perfect game.
Absolutely, and it just runs flawlessly, looks amazing, sounds amazing, everything's amazing. So yeah, I think NSO for that. I know people are like, oh, they have to blah blah blah. The next, no, I think that's where it's gonna go.
Yeah,
and,
the file. As soon as I heard the file size argument, that killed the hope of GameCube NSO for me. With the possible exception of they change it for GameCube, where they say, it's hard to keep them all on here, so you do have to download them ahead of time.
yeah, they could do that where they show the library.
Yeah, and it's like you can delete them off of there if you want. You cannot. You could do that. It says, oh, more data needs to be downloaded if you want to play this. And then maybe if you don't play a game for a while, then it automatically deletes it. Like, I don't know how they want to manage it. That is the only possible exception to that argument that otherwise I think it's foolproof. Foolproof argument that we're just not getting it.
Yeah, I mean, because I think GameCube is the last generation of games that could work for. I mean, maybe they could do, well, Wii's tough because the pointer controls you could fix with the mouse controls, but then every game has to be retroactively made to work with. And in some games, they use the pointer controls not just for pointing, but for actual depth control. So like the controller knows when it's getting closer or further. So Wii games are basically impossible. I actually just started playing Zack and Wiki again.
Oh, dang. And I want to play that.
And that's so weird going back, and it makes me realize like it's a fun game, but also there's a little bit of rose-tinted glasses about the controls and Wii controls. Pointer controls are a bit rough. But the game itself has so much character and holds up really well. But yeah, it's not as simple to just bring in a Wii game. So I think that unfortunately Wii games are also going to be one of those things that have to be like purposefully gone through and redesigned, kind of like Mario Galaxy was for the 3D All-Stars. They kind of had to do some finagling to fit everything in, which wasn't too hard because it wasn't super motion control heavy. But it did need the pointer control for certain levels to be able to navigate and stuff. So. Yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, so anyway, that was my last one. Super Pipe Dream. If they do it, cool. I'll be very shocked and really want to know how they're going to do it. But anyway, that's our insanely long podcast, our longest one yet, I think.
What are we at, 5 hours now?
Yeah, it's crazy. No, we're not too far, but we kind of sped through them there. We're going to do, so just for those listening who are still listening, thank you. We will be doing we're going to try and do a reaction video for the Direct coming out tomorrow. Be looking for that between now and the Switch 2 Direct. We're going to be doing not a live reaction, but we're going to be recording ourselves as the Direct is coming out live for Switch 2. And then we'll post that shortly after, so that'll be coming out. And then we're going to do another episode that's an actual podcast. So the next two videos you might see aren't actually podcast episodes. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anything, if you want to see the next one or two episodes, I can't confirm that we're doing the next Direct. But I know for Switch 2, we are definitely doing some kind of react video. Not showing our faces, but we'll be...
Never.
That will be on YouTube. So if you want to see that, please go into YouTube and watch those. But our next actual episode will be after the Switch 2 Direct, and it'll be us kind of giving our thoughts about probably the last two Directs, honestly. Our proper like recap of like what we thought, where things are, after we've kind of collected ourselves and been like, so. Anyway, so a lot of good stuff coming in the next week. So be on the lookout on YouTube and a lot of cool stuff. So is there anything else you want to say? Right.
Only thing is that I'm really happy to be proven wrong about there being another Direct before the Switch 2 Direct, because I thought that was never happening.
I genuinely thought it was just some pipe dream, but I was very surprised that they did that. So very excited to see like the Swan Song Direct for the Switch 1, I feel like. It'd be interesting to see what games they send it out on. There might be another one. I could be totally wrong on that too, but it does feel like this is kind of the last big hurrah to show off the Switch 1 games for this year before they really push the Switch 2.
I think it's the last Switch 1 only Direct. I could see them like...
True, yeah.
Say, like if they support the Switch 1 for a few more years, like with a couple games here and there, I could see them integrating it into like a general Nintendo Direct, but I think this is it.
That's true. Yeah, so I think this is the last Switch 1 only Direct, so bittersweet, but it's about time. So
Yeah, gosh, 8 years.
yeah, well, if you're listening only to the podcast and not on YouTube, you will hear us again next week when we've finally seen what the Switch 2 is all about. So anyway, I'm Leighton. He's Ryan. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
See ya.